Welcome to all for today's evening session. And we have a great speaker, Mr. Ajay Dhingra, who is going to explain our subscribers and all the viewers today on the topic of Bausparvertrag. In the recent days, we could see that many people have started buying a house and also thought about buying a house in the future. For this, a Bausparvertrag is one of the good option. It has both the ways, pros and cons. And for the people who are not aware about me, myself, Balaji, I'm one of the co-founder of the Vanakkam Germany. We do make videos all about Germany to make the expats' life more easier. And to explain on today's topic of Bausparvertrag, we have also our guest speaker, Mr. Ajay Dhingra, who is a certified house loan consultant and have helped many of the Indians and foreigners in buying, getting a house loan in a very simpler way. And he will be walking us through the complete process. And if you people have any of the questions during the session, kindly post your questions in the chat. And we'll make sure that all your questions will be answered today. Only then we'll be going for. And we do conduct such regular sessions every month. If you haven't been following our sessions, you can also join our Telegram groups and WhatsApp groups. We do post information on upcoming sessions and also answer any of the questions which comes up in your day-to-day life in Germany. And I will hand over the session to Mr. Ajay Dhingra and wish you good luck, Ajay.
It's my pleasure. All right, so without further ado, on how to finance a house, and is Bausparvertrag an option for this? Is it good or is it bad? To be fair and honest, I'll not answer that for you because each case is going to be individual and each one of you needs to answer the questions on your own. But I'll guide you through on which are the questions which you should be looking out for and which answers you should be giving yourselves on whether it is good or bad. All right. Okay, so what are we going to cover today? First off, who I am. Just one slide, not much. I don't like speaking about myself, so we'll dive into what are requirements you have. How is the structure of a home loan here in Germany? What is a typical loan structure and what may be atypical? And in that, we'll also cover the Bausparvertrag. We'll look at interest rates, which are currently prevailing, and how you could reduce them. And in the end, I'll just close up with which documents a typical bank or home loan consultant would need from you to finance a house. And after that, I'll be open-ended question and answers, and I'll only leave this room once everybody's question has been answered, just like the last few sessions as well. All right, my name is Ajay. Like Balaji already mentioned, I'm 43 years old. I heard I'm not dynamic anymore in one of the groups. I'm born and brought up here in Germany, living here since 43 years old. 43 years. Lived in India for 5 years, between the age of 10 and 15. My grandparents have a house in Delhi, so I was raised there for 5 years. I'm married to a wonderful wife, got 2 kids. I live near Cologne, in Leverkusen to be precise, which is just between Cologne and Düsseldorf. I bought my own house. The house I live in is my own, and I've got multiple houses as investments and a few apartments as well. And like Balaji mentioned, I'm a certified home loan consultant. You need to take a test. You need to have some kind of training to do that. But I've also a couple of years of experience on being financed and financing others, especially expats. So if you've got a blue card or a PR, don't know the language, don't know the process, that's where I come in and support you guys from A to Z. All right, so what are the typical requirements for a home loan? What is needed in the first place? We'll segregate this question into two parts. The first one is what do we need personally? What does the law state? What do the banks want? And the second one is on the property itself. Personally, you need to be an adult, otherwise you will not get a loan at all. You'll need to live in Germany or at least have a residencyship in Germany. You need to have a German bank account, and residency status is important. Why do I mention this? Because dependent visa holders in most cases will not be financed. So blue cards will be financed, PR holders will be financed, of course, European nationals as well. Those are the predominant 4 requirements for a home loan on the personal side. Financially, you'll need to have sustainable income. What does that mean? Looking at bonuses, looking at a Christmas bonus or performance bonus, most banks say if it is contractually not written down that you're getting 100% of it, or at least some part of it, then they'll deem this as zero. They'll think only in risks. And in this case, they'll say, well, it could also be possible that the performance bonus is zero, hence we're not looking at that. So that part would not be sustainable. Right? And why are the banks looking at that? Because they'll only allow you a loan or grant you a loan for which the EMI is not more than 40, 45, maximum 50% of your net income. Right? That's important because they want you to sustain. They want you to survive. They want you to go on vacation once in a while. They want you to, I don't know, give your spouse a bouquet of flowers once in a while. And for that to be possible, it's important that they accommodate some kind of cost of living. Right? And that's the other 60, 55, or 50% of your net income. They'll also look at your current credit score. A thing called SCHUFA, you might already heard about this, where all banks, everywhere you have some kind of contract, they push data to credit scoring system here in Germany. And if you do not pay that bill, if you don't pay your phone bill, if you don't pay your radio tax bill, then you're going to have a negative remark in that scoring system. And if you do, banks will not allow you to get a home loan. Right? They'll say, look, he's not been very well maintaining his accounts in the past. How can I ensure as a bank that he'll pay my EMI? Hence, please pay your bills on time. Another factor is the employment status. What I'm referring here to is, do you have a limited or an unlimited contract? Banks love security, hence they will always favor unlimited contracts, although there are exceptions in place. First and foremost for jobs which are limited in nature as such. What do I mean with that? Those are doctors, for example, or professors at a university, or university staff sometimes. Those have limited contracts by nature, hence they would be, that's an exception there. Another one is age. We already heard that you need to be an adult, but what do I mean with age here on this side? Most banks ask you to close the full home loan before you reach the pension age, which is 67 years here in Germany. Okay? So at least on a calculatory basis. That's what's important to them. Again, they're looking at security. And another thing which keeps popping up in my discussions and consultations with clients is whether they have a personal loan running or not. Because that is something which will reduce your sustainable income. A few of my clients have personal loan for investing in India or buying a car, but that EMI they're paying there reduces the sustainable income, and because of that, they might not be financed in the future for a home. Right? So please, if you're just shy of buying a car and buying a home, discuss that with your bank, discuss that with your home loan consultant before you take that step. All right, so we've covered the requirements for a home loan on a personal level, on a financial level. Now that we know what the requirements are, let's have a look at a typical structure of a home loan. Let's assume you found a house and you're discussing with the seller on pricing, the terms and conditions, and discussing, negotiating, not bargaining, and you've reached a stage where you want to involve a bank or a home loan consultant. Right? Let's assume in this example that the house costs 500,000 euros. And if you need 500,000 from the bank as well, then we speak about 100% finance. If you want to renovate or modernize the house, then you might need some cash on top. Then we would speak about 110% finance in this case. Now, the depiction on the left-hand side, the house with the grading colors, does have a meaning. The more green it is, the more probable it is the bank is going to finance you. And those 180 and 60% finance on the left-hand side, that is the loan to value, which means that if you're only needing 400K from a bank on a 500K house or 500K purchase price, then we speak about an 80% finance. And similarly, for 60% finance, you would only need 300K. Now, these thresholds there, each bank will have that kind of a threshold, 100%, 80, and 60. And by reaching these thresholds, you would decrease your interest rate. So if you only need 80%, interest will be decreased because the bank has less risk. And you'll get one of the best rates if you have 60 or even 50% loan to value. Right? Each bank will have a different threshold structure in between that. Some banks give you a better rate every percent. You don't need that loan, or other banks have a 5% slabs. So if you're at 98%, it'll be the same interest rate like with 100%. So it does make sense to have a closer look with your home loan consultant on what if I put in X% more or X euros more, would that make a difference? Right? And a good home loan consultant will not only give you the rate for whatever down payment you have, but also look a bit over and above that to give you a hint. Look, if you have 2,000 euros more, your EMI will reduce. That is part one, but also the interest rate will. Right? So that's the reason why I might ask you in my consultations, what's the maximum you could afford? What if you put in 5K more? What if you put in 10K more? Will that make a difference to you? Because it will make a difference to the interest rate. All right, so loan to value is one very important aspect. I already mentioned that a word called down payment. I'll also call it ancillary cost. In German, it's going to be called Kaufnebenkosten, which will comprise of a land transfer tax, which is different from state to state, which might involve the cost for a realtor, for a broker, if he's involved. It'll have the notary charges as well as the court charges. And depending upon state and whether a broker is involved or not, we are looking at 6.5% up to 15% of the buying price. That the bank expects from you as a down payment, as its own equity. Own equity, in this case, German word Eigenkapital. There are exceptions here, but banks might not want to finance you in that case because it's going to be expensive. Possible, yes, but expensive, but we'll see that later. Now, how does a typical loan structure look like? Typically, what we have is 100K from a bank called KfW. That's a subsidy from the German government to push for own use. That's only applicable for people who are buying homes to live there themselves. And that 100K, you will get at a reduced interest rate. The rest might come from one bank. I just chose the PSD bank because the color resembles the deck here, so no affiliation there. That would come from a bank. And the rest 50K, which are in this case the modernization cost on the left-hand side, will also come from the same bank. Right? Typically, this is either split into two parts because the 50K you would want to pay back a bit faster, or put in together as a 450K loan. That's possible as well. Now, the red bulb there means that there used to be a subsidy for highly energy efficient houses, which has been discontinued, continued, and discontinued again, which will be revived hopefully next year again. So we might see another subsidy coming up apart from the KfW own home use, which will be fit in there, reducing your 400K from the bank and then putting in some, I don't know, we don't know yet, 100, 120, 150K from KfW in that case once again. All right, so this is a typical loan structure which I would propose if KfW makes sense in your typical case or in your case. Now, I already mentioned that you would need to have some own contribution. You'll have some ancillary costs which the bank expects to pay for you to pay. Now let's have a look at the same house, 500K. We're getting financed. The house costs 500K. We'll have ancillary costs at the top and the purchase price on the bottom. If you don't have any own contribution, €0, your probability of getting financed is going to be very difficult. It's very low probability there. Plus, it's going to be very expensive for you. Very expensive because 500K is going to most probably going to come from one bank, and the other 50K is going to come from a third-party bank, which will have 3, 4, 5% on top of the home loan as an interest rate, which makes it unbearable for some, unfinanceable for others. And others say that the EMI is just too high. Now for 100% finance, which means on a 500K house, your own contribution is around 50K. So 10% own contribution that'll be financed with banks as long as your net sustainable income, you're able to pay the EMI from that. Banks will finance that, and that is, let's say, 80–90% of what I do, right? 80–90% of my clients put in the 10% on contribution and then get 100% from the bank and then are financed this way. If you're looking at paying around 20%, in this case, around 150,000 euros, that'll definitely be financed. We'll be getting very good interest rates from banks, meaning some, if you're looking at 4% right now, you'll get 3.4, 3.5% interest rate depending upon the property, right? So it's a huge difference in EMI. It's a huge benefit for you because the bank has less risk. And let's just assume you have 40% own contribution, in this case 250K. Banks will be opening bottles of champagne once you walk into the branch because it's a very easy finance for them. It's almost no risk, and they'll call you the best client ever. Right? So although they are not earning much money with you, but they know that they've got security, they've got the collateral, the house or apartment as a collateral, and if you were to default on your EMI, then and they need to sell and foreclose the property, they would definitely get their 300,000 euros back on a 500,000 euro property. And so banks are always looking at, is it risky for me? How much risk is involved? Is the collateral, the property really worth it? And are you financially stable enough? Do you have enough household income, not only now, but also in 5 or 10 years, to be able to pay back the amount of 500,000. Now, we know what we need. We know the interest rates plus minus. Now let's have a look at what type of mortgages, what type of home loans are available right now. And we'll have a look at two especially. One which is predominantly used in Germany is the fixed interest rate, the annuity loan. German Annuitätendarlehen, where you'll have a fixed term, 5, 10, 15, 20 years, predominantly used for own use. It's just a bit of flexibility because the payments, the repayments is capped, either at an initial 2, 3, 4, 5%, plus perhaps a lump sum payment option, but you'll not be able to close, let's say if you win a lottery or sell property in India, and want to bring the money here, you'll not be able to close before the term ends, right? That's why it's just medium flexibility. The risk is relatively low, at least for the term of 5, 10, or 15 years, whatever you align, because within that period, you know your fixed EMI, right? You know it's going to be, I don't know, 1,500 euros a month for the next 10 years, full stop, no questions asked. That's not going to increase, and it's not going to decrease either. Second up is a variation of the annuity loan, of the fixed interest loan, a full repayment loan. That's what you typically have in India, wherein you fix a term of, I don't know, 18 years, 20 years, and within that term, you are repaying the full amount, right? In this case, 500,000 euros. Typically used for own use. Flexibility is limited. because even there, the lump sum payment options, if you align 18 years, you might even get it down to 12 years or something, but not after 6 years, you'll not be able to close it because even though you had the cash, the bank will not allow you to close it upfront. Risk here is almost nil because you know your EMI for the next 20 years. You know that you're not going to pay more than that. Interest is fixed for that period. So EMI is fixed, interest is fixed, so rate is fixed, and there's no downside to this from in terms of security. Then we have the building society loan, German term Bausparvertrag. Typical term is 20 to 30 years. Typically used for own use, which is good for own use as well. Flexibility is not that high. We'll see later why. And the risk is medium. Why is that medium? I'll come to that later because there are some things which the providers cannot guarantee, right? And hence there is a bit of risk involved, but we'll have a look at that later. Then you have the interest-only loan, Endfälliges, where you're only paying interest on the loan amount, which you definitely don't want, because for own use, that's going to be horrendously bad. We'll come to that later as well. Flexibility is high, though. You can pay back at any point in time, just like the risks are in this case very high, because you will have, just like the variable rate loan, variable rates. Also, let me come back. Interest-only loan, why is the risk high? You're only paying the interest. And at the end of the term, you don't know whether the house is going to be valued more or less. You don't know the interest rates at that point in time. And because you did not pay anything back, you could end up with a very, very high EMI because interest rates have doubled, for example. So you don't know how high the EMI is going to be in 10 years. Similarly, for the variable rate loan, which is typically not used for own use, because we are basing the interest rates on the Euribor, the interbank European rates of interbank exchange rates. So that's something which where the interest rates can vary from month to month or from quarter to quarter. Right? So in this case, you don't know what the EMI is going to be in 3 months. It might go down. It might also go up. And if you have a look at how high the interest rates are now versus the last year, EMI could have quadrupled in that time. Right? And for those people who want to have security, who don't like risks, this is something well, I would recommend that for own use, because you might want to have some kind of security in this. Flexibility, though, is very high in variable rate loan because you're able to pay back any amount at any point in time over and above the interest you're paying. Let's have a closer look at two options which I mentioned. One is the fixed interest rates and one is the building society loan. The annuity loan and Tätendarlehen in German will have a couple of things which you might also be knowing from India. You align a fixed term, generally in Germany it's 10 years, wherein you are fixing the interest rate and you're fixing the EMI, the equated monthly installment. Now, once you pay back the first month of, once you pay the first month's EMI, the following month, the interest will be calculated on the remaining principal. Now, if that's the case, and you go on for the next months and years, you'll see that the amount of interest you're paying on a monthly basis is reducing, and the amount of repayment towards the initial loan is increasing. And after the term, say 10 years, you will not have paid back the full amount. Hence, then you would need to refinance after that fixed term. Refinance would mean either, if you have the cash, pay it off, or take up on the offer which the bank gave you, because they're going to give you an offer, or search for a third-party bank who then closes the loan of the first bank, and then you would have a loan with the second bank. So this is typically what's done in Germany. Now let's have a look at Bausparvertrag. There are two use cases for a Bausparvertrag. The first one is if you're buying a property in near future, which means the next couple of weeks. And the second one is buying a property in, let's say, 7 to 15 years, plus minus. Both will have similar parameters, but one might be useful, the other one not. Let's go into that. Now, if you're buying now, which means the next couple of days or weeks, you'll have, let's take the same example as earlier of 500K. I will have a 500K upfront loan from a bank. And at the same time, you'll be opening a savings account. You'll be saving, depending upon scheme and offer the building society loan guys give you. You'll be saving up to 40% of the loan they gave you. And after the defined period, let's say 10 years, those 200,000 euros will be used to pay off parts of the 500K loan, and the rest then will be repaid just like an annuity loan. Now, here are a couple of things to take care about. First thing is the little triangle on the far left. Once you open that savings account, your savings account will be in negative balance. In most cases, it's going to be negative by 1 to 1.6% of the upfront loan they gave you. Right? So in this case, let's say 5,000 euros. The first 8 to 10 months, you're just getting to zero, and then you'll start saving. Second thing is the upfront loan. With the annuity loan, I just explained that you're repaying the principal, and then the interest is going to reduce over time. In this case, because you're not repaying any part of the loan, but you're having a savings account on top, and you're not repaying the loan, means that the interest you're paying on a monthly level is going to stay same for the duration of, let's say, 10 years, making it a bit more expensive if interest rates are same. And the third thing which you need to take care about is what is this time frame the building society loans are giving you. Most cases it's 10 or 12 or 12 and a half years, but they'll never be able to pinpoint the exact date. So that's one thing which you should be looking at. What kind of period is that? What kind of date are they giving you? Which kind of quarter are they giving you? Because you might run into risk of needing to bridge that loan for 1, 2, or 3 quarters to actually start repaying them. So to sum it up, you'll be securing the interest rate for the next 30 years. You will know your EMI for the first 10 years and for the next 20 years. So if you want to stay in Germany and you say, well, I need security, I love security, I want to know what my EMI is, that might be a good option here. In some cases, this kind of a loan is the only option for a loan. I might ask you, well, we need the security that in 12 years, we as a bank need to know that you're able to pay the EMI. You need to fix it now, so please go with this option. But there are also some cons, which I tried explaining here. You'll have closing costs between 1 and 1.6% of the upfront loan. There is no repayment of the upfront loan, which means the interest amount you're paying across the period is going to be same, at least in the savings phase. You'll not have a guarantee of a pinpointed date when the 200,000 euros will be converted and be paid off, paying off the part of the 500K loan. You're going to have a very high EMI in the repayment phase. That's what most sellers will not be able to tell you or are not telling you actively, but we'll see an example later on. You will have some kind of additional cost, some 12, 16, 18 euros a year just for maintaining the savings account. which the sellers need to tell you, but somewhere hidden in the fine print. And for those who say, well, it's a savings account, yes, it's called a savings account, and the savings interest rate right now in most of the schemes are 0.1%. So the 0.1% might not even cover the 12 or 16 or 18 euros account maintenance charges. Right, so pros and cons explained for if you're getting a Bausparvertrag to buy something right now. Let's have a look at the second use case, wherein you want to sign a building society loan, a Bausparvertrag, to be able to buy in 7 or 10 or 15 years. Even there, we'll have a savings phase, we'll have a repayment phase. Savings account, same example, you'll need to be saving 40% of whatever you aligned. Let's say you aligned a 500K loan or 500K Bausparvertrag, 40% of that 200K, so you'll be saving up to 200K. And once you save that up, you will get a loan of 300K, making it a 500,000 euro financing possible. Right? 200 you saved and 300 the loan. Now in this case, also you'll have closing cost. Nobody's going to be able to pinpoint and say it's going to be that you're going to be saved 200K till that time, but you might need to wait for a week, a month, or a quarter or two to be able to get the loan and avail the loan. Right. So if you need the money in 7 years and 5 months, it's going to be very difficult, next to impossible, for someone to say, okay, this is the waiting period. You're now eligible. You now can avail the loan. So even here, securing interest rates, perfect. If you want to know your EMI or you want to refinance in 7 years or in 8 years, and you know you need to refinance 500K, this could be an option to save money and safeguard the interest rate. It's, well, forced saving, so to say. You might want to put in money into a Bausparvertrag in order to save money at all. And if you are risk averse and don't want to go into a stock market or ETFs or mutual funds, that this might be an option for you to go ahead. But there are cons as well. Again, closing cost, which is pretty high from my perspective. The missing guarantee of the payout date, which I already mentioned, which is still highlighted in the deck. You still will have some additional cost. Although you're getting that 0.1 minimalistic saving interest rate, that might not be enough to cover your account maintenance charges here. Now that is Bausparvertrag for if you know you want to buy something at a later stage. Let me give you an example of how these things are structured and how this would look like on a contractual basis and what to look out for. Now, the Bausparvertrag guys will tell you you're going to get an interest rate of 0.x%, or in this case, it's 1.55%. Nowadays, that's a horrifically good interest rate, but you will need to look at the fine print here. Are you really getting 100% payout of that 300K in the above example? In this case, LBS says, well, you're going to get only 98% because 2% are agio. Agio means that they are taking away 2% of the 300K as a charge, as a fee, apart from the closing costs they already have put in the beginning. Right? So you're not even getting 300K, you're only getting 98% of 300K. And this will lead to a definitely higher effective interest rate. Right? The first one is the marketing one, 155 without any charges included. And the second one, the effective interest rate, according to German law, Preisangabenverordnung, which needs to have included all additional charges. And now all of a sudden you're 0.7% higher than the initial advertised rate, which is almost 50% higher than advertised. Right? And now in this case, it might even make sense to go for a normal annuity loan. Second thing which I would like to draw your attention to is the EMI, which you might be knowing the EMI for the future, but if the consultant is not good or the seller of this contract is not good, then he'll not draw your attention to this exact figure, which is if you're looking at a saving in the savings phase and your EMI there is 1,500 euros, it might lead to, and after let's say 10 years, once you have saved the 200K, it might lead to an EMI which is 2,500 euros, right? Which in that period might not be bearable for you anymore, right? So please have a look at the effective interest rate, the payout, the EMI after your savings phase. I've mentioned a lot of watch outs and looks out and that kind of stuff. These are things which you would need to ask your seller. You would need to look at the fine print in detail, and not knowing all these things will lead to things I have in my consulting on a daily basis. Where people ask me, how can I get out of this? Right? But that's on a different note. Now, while you're being sold these kind of contracts, there are going to be some typical arguments, right? And I just call out 7 of them, and which questions I would ask them, or you should ask them, to counter, or at least know stuff before you sign them. First is secure the low interest rate of 0.x%, 1%, 0.75%, 0.9%, doesn't even matter. The question I would ask myself is, do I really need the security of 25 plus years? If you're entering into such a contract, the first and foremost reason for doing so is knowing the EMI for the next couple of decades. Most of my clients don't even know whether they're going to stay here for 10 or 15 years. And with buying such a contract, you are buying security and leaving aside flexibility. You're buying security in the sense that you're paying money for that security. The upfront charges, upfront fees, maintenance charges, and the RG I was just speaking about. So ask yourself, do you really need the security? Second argument is you'll get a subsidy from the government. I didn't mention that earlier, because the question I would ask myself is, am I really eligible for that subsidy? A subsidy in this case, just mentioning 140 euros per year. And the eligibility is for everyone who's earning less than 70K as a couple. Most of my clients are here on a blue card or came here on a blue card. Most of my clients, a spouse is working as well, either in a mini job or in a full-time job, and they're exceeding that level of income. So they're not eligible for the subsidy in the first place. It might sound good availing a subsidy, but you might not be eligible. Third option or third argument is you can take your saved money at any point in time during the savings phase. Yes, that's true, but please ask the seller, what are the costs involved? What is the waiting time involved? And if that's okay with you, fine. Most of the cases I've seen, the costs are horrendously high. You would need to pay 1 or 2% of the already saved money to get your saved money back. And the transaction period or waiting time is calculated in weeks and months and not hours and days. And so if that's still okay with you, perfectly fine. But please ask the guy who's selling this contract to you, what is the cost involved if I need to pull out money after 3 years or 5 years, if I don't want to avail the loan anymore, and how much time do I need to typically wait to retrieve that money. The fourth argument is you'll get a subsidy, and this time from your employer. True, yes, but you'll get that subsidy anyways. And I would ask myself whether there are any better options available to invest that subsidy, in this case vermögenswirksame Leistung or die Arbeitnehmersparzulage. Now, if you're looking at a forced saving, which I mentioned earlier as a pro for the Bausparvertrag, obviously you can go with this type of construct. If you're more on looking at returns and looking at an ETF or a mutual fund which could perform better than the 0.1%, then perhaps an ETF is the better choice. But if you like security, then Bausparvertrag or putting that VL, vermögenswirksame Leistung, into this contract might be a good choice. The fifth one is you can save taxes if the property is a rental. Yes, that's true. Let me give you an example why that's the case. In an annuity loan, I mentioned that the amount of interest you're paying goes down over the period of time. And I also mentioned that during the Bausparvertrag section that the amount of interest you're paying is on the plain level for the next couple of years during the contract term. And I, as an investor, don't care much about the repayment part. I care about what is the cash flow, the net cash flow at the end of the month. And if my EMI is fixed at a certain level, 1,500 euros, and 1,000 of that is interest, I'm able to offset that interest as an expense towards my rental income. And obviously, my aim would be to keep that as high as possible because the EMI is anyway fixed, and I don't have any benefit of repaying the loan faster. Hence, I might want to have that stabilized, the interest payment stabilized. I could save taxes on this. Yes, that's true. But on the other hand, is Bausparvertrag the right option? Or if I like the risk, I could also, instead of looking at a Bausparvertrag, I could look at an insurance, a life insurance, or an ETF or a mutual fund to put that money into. Right? So I don't need this vehicle of a Bausparvertrag. There are other vehicles available. Again, if you're looking low risk, Bausparvertrag. If you're a bit risk, loving the risk a bit, then you're looking for an insurance or an ETF instead of the Bausparvertrag. Next is you will not get a loan without a Bausparvertrag. If that's the case, red flags all over. Then I would ask myself, is the property really worth it? The reason why banks might say this, and this might be the only option, or the home loan consultant says this, is that the loan to value is calculated a bit differently if you're having a Bausparvertrag. And in this case, if the banker says, or 2 or 3 banks say, or the home loan consultant which you trust says, you will not get a loan without this construct, red flag would be the property is not worth it. Right? Then the buying price, the purchase price is just too high. Loan to value is just too high. It might exceed 110, 120, 140% of the intrinsic value. Right? That's an argument where I would then rather not buy the property if Bausparvertrag is the only option left. The last typical argument, other options might not make sense for you. If I hear that argument, then I'd ask, is the guy in front of me selling a product or is he consulting me? Because if he's selling, he's earning double, at least triple commission on what he's trying to sell you. Right? Plus, it's a very easy sale. You don't need to be certified. You could go to your local Gewerbeamt, pay $30, and start selling Bausparverträge. That's why there are gazillions of people trying to do that. It's don't need any training for this. Pay $30 and you're free to sell these things. Hence, there are going to be a lot of people trying to sell it. And if that's the only thing they are allowed to sell or are able to sell, they might be just selling it to you, not consulting you. That's a question I would ask myself. Is it the only thing he is able to sell? Is it for his own gain? Or is he trying to consult me in the sense that this is the thing which makes sense? I've looked at these 2, 3 other options. They don't make sense because of these 2 or 3 reasons. Right? That sounds like consulting, but if it's the only option he's showing you, I would rather say no to the seller and look and shop around. All right, I hope this was as open as possible, although I've got a very an opinion on Bausparverträge you might have heard out of my speech here, but nonetheless, it might be a good option for you if you're looking out to buy a house. Let's have a look at interest rates and why that's important and why the picture I'm depicting right now is important. This is the refinancing rates, so-called 10-year swap for banks. So on the y-axis, if you see 3%, that's the borrowing rate the banks have from other banks. They'll put a margin on top and then sell it to, in this case, for 4%. Let's have a look at two things here. The first one, the steep skyrocketing interest rates increase in the current year, wherein the last year I was struggling to get my clients an interest rate below 1%. Now I'm struggling to get interest rates below 4%. It's a very high curve, never seen, unprecedented, never seen before. But we've got a little dip here, which is happening right now, which shows us that the rates are stabilizing. You're expecting right now a 4% on a 100% loan, which means that you're bringing in the ancillary cost as own capital, own equity. Then home loan consultants and banks will be able to finance you at 4% plus minus. Right? This is a bit of silver lining right now that it's not continuing to grow, but nonetheless, it's a very high curve in relation to last year. The question is then, how can I influence that rate? How can I influence the rate I am getting? Right? The current Euribor, which I already mentioned, of course, you cannot influence that rate. At least we can't, I can't. So there is no positive influence from your side. That's an underlying mechanism which you just cannot change. What you can change is the total amount and the term of the loan. Now, the lower the amount is you need in relation to the purchase price, the better the interest rate. Another positive influence might be a reduction of the term. Now, there are some schemes available right now wherein a 30-year loan is cheaper than a 10-year loan. Right? I financed somebody today with exact those terms. So please ask your bank or your home loan consultant on checking with those kind of schemes. Although it doesn't sound very logical, in this case, 30 years lower than 10 years. It used to be different. That's why it's reduction of the term then would reduce the interest rate as well. But please have an open mind and search for a home loan consultant who has that open mind to help you on reducing the interest rates, no matter how logical or illogical that may sound on increasing the term. The third factor would be the loan to value, which I already explained. So the lower the loan to value, the better. First point I already covered is reduce the loan amount, which means bring in more equity. But there are banks who are looking at the loan to value and the valuation of the property a bit better, in the sense that if they evaluate the house at, let's say, 600,000 and you're only paying 500 for it, they'll give you the benefit of reduction of interest and reduction of risk in terms of reduction of interest. Right? So the positive influence you can bring in is don't buy overpriced, don't bargain either, but negotiate, right? Or increase own capital. That's what I already mentioned about. If you have available securities, a life insurance, a term insurance, other properties which need to be in Germany, then you can have those as securities as well to reduce the risk of the bank and thus reduce the interest rate as well. Properties in India will not count because the German banks do not have jurisdiction in India. And if things go south and you default on your payments, they are not able to foreclose the house in India. Hence, only properties here in Germany would be available for these securities. I already mentioned the credit rating, the Schufa score. So please pay on time. Check Schufa scores annually. You're able to get a free copy of the data they have on you on a regular basis. So please check that before getting into a home loan discussion. You might find something which is odd, where the banks say, I'm not giving you a loan because of the Schufa score you have, because of the negative remarks there. So have a look at that first. If you have the time to do so, have a look at that. It doesn't cost you anything. It's just, I don't know, a stamp or two, or just online to get the letter home and see what data do they have on you. Is there anything which is odd? Name is not written right, the date of birth not right, or you paid the bill, but that's not reflecting there. So those things might and will have an impact on eligibility in the first place, and or on the interest rate. Marital status and age. Positive impact is if you're married and you can have your wife or husband signing along as a co-applicant. That's positive. And age, I already mentioned that some banks are looking to closing the loan, the home loan, within the working time period, which is till the age of 67. So best would be to buy young, so that you've got enough time to repay the full loan until the age of 67. Next factor will be a high sustainable income. There are banks available which give you a reduction of 0.35% on the interest rate because you are earning a high income. That's great, but you need to have that. And how to get there? First is don't have a probationary period, because within that period, the banks will say, well, we're uncertain whether our applicant is going to stay there more than 6 months, because no notice can be given within 2 weeks. Hence, the applicant might be out of a job. Either way, right? If the employer says we don't need you, way one. Way two is, as an applicant, say I don't want to work with you as a company anymore, and then the bank says, well, who and how is he going to pay the EMI now? Right. So probationary period needs to have ended. Increased income, I already mentioned. Increase or increased income. That might be promotions. That might be a side business. Just don't try selling Bausparvertrag. That might not be the best version of it, but you can open, you can start as a freelancer, a program on the side, whatever your profession is, just start a side business. But just beware of local laws and regulations. Balaji's already made a video on that earlier. And usage is one thing which might or might not be influenced by you, but if you're thinking about investing and using on your own, and you've got both options available, own use will always be subsidized by the banks, in the sense that the interest rates are going to be a bit lower because the risk for them is a bit lower. In an investment, you might not get the rent for whatever reason. Perhaps you don't have back-to-back contracts, and hence that is a risk for the bank and a risk for you. Hence, the investment rates for investments are always a bit higher than for own use. Plus, in own use, you can look at KfW subsidies if they make sense, which I explained above, right? The own home use scheme 124 by KfW, wherein you get reduced interest rate for 100,000 euros, which will not be available if you put this the property on rent from day one. And one thing which is undervalued, from my opinion, is terms and conditions of the home loan agreement. Get unwanted terms deleted or removed by the home loan consultant of the bank, and ask them whether you'll get some kind of benefit. Just as one example, the special payments, the lump sum payment options, there are some banks available. If you do not want this Sondertilgung lump sum payment option, they'll reduce their interest rate, not by much, but nonetheless by 0.01 to 0.05%, which might make a difference in the long term. And there are other terms which might be of interest of you. to have a closer look at, or ask a bank, what if we change this parameter? What if we change that? But a good bank and a good home loan consultant will guide you through this, anyways. If you're buying a new property, a new construction, please align your payout dates with the contract, with the home loan contract. Don't just take whatever the bank is giving you. Have a look at the payment terms in the new construction contract, as well as your home loan contract. They need to match somehow, so that you don't pay penalties on the loan which has not been dispersed yet. Right, so keep that as low as possible. If you've got any questions on that, Balaji will be later providing you a link where you could get into a session with me so I can explain a bit more detail. Some banks give you a better interest rate if you choose a high EMI or a high principal repayment. Most banks are at 2% right now. There are some banks at 1.1, 1.5, 1.8, but there are banks, if you were to pay 3% repayment rate, then they're decreasing the interest rate because you are decreasing their risk at a faster pace, right? So hence in my sessions, I'll always ask you, what is the maximum you want to afford, you can afford, what are you still feeling comfortable with, to choose an EMI which makes sense for you, or according also to the principal repayment schedules of the bank, so that we can have a trade-off there and get the best rate for you. All right, so which documents do I need, or does a bank need to finance? Personal, again, personal and property, same dissection like earlier. We'll need your residency status, a blue card, PR, your passport, self-disclosure, financial self-disclosure, Selbstauskunft, which the bank will guide you through, or the home loan consultant will guide you through on how to create that. We would need last 3 payslips, payslip of December last year, tax returns, so please do your taxes if you've not already done that, and proof of available equity. Are you paying the ancillary costs, for example? Some banks accept the proof of own capital at an Indian bank, but please, in this case, already transfer the money, take a screenshot of that, transfer the money already, so the home loan consultant can guide you through on the next steps on how to get that done. The property, and that's most cases the most difficult part, property documents, we would need the expose, the listing. We'd need the land registry, Grundbuch, maximum 3 to 6 months old, a ground plan, a Grundriss, so the architectural drawings, and a land map, just to name a few, to give you a glimpse of what the broker needs to provide you, what the seller needs to provide you, in order for the bank to actually say yes or no to an application. All right, how to finance? We've got 3 options here. Banking landscape is pretty big. We've got some 700 to 800 banks across Germany. And obviously you can go to your main bank where your salary is being credited. They know your spending habits best. They know your income situation best. They might not need all the documents which I mentioned earlier. They might even give you a good offer. You'll have least hassle. Go there, get an appointment. It's a personal discussion with them in best cases. And they might give you an offer within a couple of days or weeks so that you can sign off and go ahead. Second option is check on banks in the area or the web. Right? You don't need to go to your house bank. It's not mandatory to do that. And of course, if you're looking at a third-party bank, they will have requirements on upfront documentation, right? The documents I just described. You'll gain a bit of negotiation power. But it's a bit of hassle for you, of course, because you need to coordinate with different parties. They might ask for different type of documents, depending upon bank. But then you might have 2 or 3 offers on the table and then can choose and decide. Of course, you'll have independent home loan consultants or impartial home loan consultants who have access to multiple banks, 550, 650, 700 banks at the same time, to see what is the best rate they're giving you. And they might finance you at a bank you never heard of, but they're existing, they're good banks, PSD Bank, not everybody of you knew before the session. Now you do. That might be a good option for you. Right? And he'll be the interface between you and the multiple banks he's checking with. I'm going to guide you through the full procedure if he's good from start on checking the listing till the end of walking you through the purchase agreement so that you know what you're signing. And how can I help? What I do is I assess properties. I have a look at evaluation. I have a look at are you buying the property at a fair market value? We just discussed about loan to value. The value part is something I look at so that you have facts and figures for negotiations, for example. I provide home loans. I check 650 banks across Germany for the best rate, which is fitting your requirements. And I also provide personal loans. And how can you contact me? Balaji will be providing a link to a contact form. And if you're in the area, Cologne or Düsseldorf, I'm happy to visit you to have a face-to-face discussion, or you can come to my office in Rüsselsbad, in Bergisch Gladbach, or in Monheim. There we can have a face-to-face discussion, but most probably we'll have a video call the first time we meet because I finance homes across Germany, and I'll be available on WhatsApp as well as on Telegram as well. All right. Now it's time for your questions. I'll take 5 seconds to drink a glass of water. And in the meanwhile, what I'll do is I'll stop the presentation mode and have a look at questions which are there in the chat. And